times you started recording, there was that one where I was like,
hello. Welcome to, I caught him off guard. Welcome to the Female Male Perspective with my co-host, Eddie Cunningham, and I am Tina Valiant. Hi, Eddie.
aloha. Good to see you guys.
He's showing you guys his shirt today. Savage as hell, but I still need cuddles.
Yeah, that kind of sums me up. It was actually cute. I saw this on Facebook, on one of the Facebook ads, and I put it on my thing and I said, hey, in case anybody wants to get me a birthday gift. And I didn't even know it, but one of my neighbors, her and her husband do crafty stuff, and she had like a Cricut machine or whatever. So they just showed up at my house like a few hours later and was like, here, we made it. I was like, oh, this is awesome. But yeah, this kind of sums me up.
Definitely. So today we're going to be talking about dating. Now that you've broken the ice, it's time to jump in. And let me also recap that in the first episode of this series of dating, we went over, are you ready to date? And that's why we're now taking the next step. Okay, if you've determined that you're ready to date, now it's time to jump in. And what do you need to watch for? And what are the rules of play here? And what are the different ways that you can meet people? So Eddie, I'm going to let you lead on this.
Cool. So this is, again, a continuation of the great discussion. We've got 3 of these podcasts that we're doing that's really diving in a little deeper into dating. The first one we did was about really the self-mastery side of it. It's preparing yourself for the idea of dating and why we're dating. So we date to find that long-term relationship that we hope will eventually lead to the commitment of marriage and whatnot, or a civil union, or whatever you'd like to call it for your life. But for me, it's about working towards a marriage. That starts internally. Everything you want to create outside of you starts internally and working on your own road to self-mastery. Anything that's left unhealthy inside of you, you will attract the opposite, the mirrored reflection of that unhealthiness into your life. That's not what you want to do when you're dating. So before you get out there and start dating, before you master the second podcast here, you got to master that first podcast. So if you haven't watched it, make sure you go back and watch it. It leads right in. The reason we're calling it the whole breaking the ice and diving in is this is part of what I call the fat polar bear experience, or the fat polar bear class that I've taught at singles conferences around the nation. It's a lot of fun. But now that we've gotten through the whole breaking the ice, delving into who you are, you're finally ready to date. Now we're going to talk about how do we get ourselves back out into the dating pool, or the dating ocean. So I had a real interesting experience a few years ago, and I was asked to speak at a chamber event for my city. And I sat there for weeks trying to figure out, how am I going to teach networking and sales to all these different businesses? So we had multi-level marketers, we had doctors' offices, we had care homes, we had real estate agents, we had all these different businesses. And I'm going, okay, how am I going to teach networking and sales to that many different businesses, that many different kinds of people, and have it make sense to everybody? And as I was sitting at my computer, typing stuff up, Googling stuff, looking up old talks and whatnot, my phone kept dinging, ding, ding. And I look over, and it's one of my dating apps telling me that I had messages. And it hit me. The number one form of networking and sales that everyone has done to one degree of success or another is dating.
Mm-hmm.
And when I first threw this concept out there, I had people go, what? No, dating and sales, they don't go together. And those of you that have ever mastered sales actually will totally dig a lot of the analogies that come along with this. So I went on to teach at the chamber, and I told them, I said, we're not even going to talk about networking and sales. I'm going to teach you about dating. And so I ended up going back and forth, but I told them, I said, one of the biggest issues with dating, I said, I'll just throw this analogy out there and tell me I'm wrong. And I said, how many of you are married? And a bunch of people put their hands up. And I said, I want to throw out there that you guys are the greatest sales and networkers here in the room. And I went on to talk about how I totally lost my train of thought. Sorry about that. I went off on that. I've got like 2 or 3 stories like peeking up ahead right now about.
No, you were talking about how the married ones in the room are the best salespeople of all.
So one of the things I said when one of the worst types of salesmen, and I said men are more guilty of this than women, but women can also be guilty of this as well when it comes to dating, is men try to close every freaking deal. So as a salesperson, when you're out there, we'll just use car sales because it's probably one of the most high pressure. It's one of the places we hate going to be sold, but we all need cars. And it's kind of what dating feels like, is like a bunch of used car salesmen out there. So as a salesman, if you're a good salesman, if you drive home and force the sale to happen, your customer is not going to have a great experience and they're not going to want to come back to get the product anymore. Same thing with dating, and dudes are the worst about this, man. They like drive home, they push hard, they finally get the sale, they close the deal, and then there's buyer's remorse on the customer side of it the next day. Now tell me that is not a great analogy on some of the experiences we have had when it comes to dating.
Female perspective, yes. But yes. I will tell you that a lot of my male friends have told me recently that things have shifted a little bit and women have become more of the pushy salespeople.
Oh, yeah.
And they get offended if the guy doesn't take them up on their offer to like stay the night.
Yeah. And I'm glad you brought that up. There's actually been a really big shift in, the idea that it was always the man that was doing the pursuing and the man that was trying to do the closing. You're absolutely spot on with that.
Yeah, it's gotten a little crazy out there.
So I went on to talk about what are some of the good traits of a great salesman? Okay. People love to buy a product. People hate to be a sold product. How does that apply to dating? Well, if you're out there just showing your product and letting people that are interested in your product come to you to talk to you about your product, you're going to go a lot further and you're not going to waste your time with people that aren't interested in your product. But here's something, and this is a novel concept to the dating world that I think would make dating so much easier and so much fun. If you go as a salesperson, if you look at each potential customer, not as just that one single sell that you have to push to get through, but as hey, I'm not sure you're going to be interested in my product. I'd like to talk to you about my product. I'd like to get to know what you're offering as well in exchange. However, if you're not interested in my product, I'd like for this to be a good enough experience that if you know anyone that would be interested in my product, you'd be willing to introduce me to them. Apply that to the dating world. What if we went out on dates and actually dated people with the idea of, hey, look, I just want to get to know you. You get a chance to get to know me. We're going to be open and honest with each other. And if I'm not your cup of tea, if I'm not your product, not a problem. However, when you drive a sale home so hard that it's an uncomfortable experience for the customer, they will never introduce you, even though their best friend might be the perfect customer for the product. They are absolutely not going to introduce them to it.
Right.
Tell me I'm wrong. You're a sales expert. Tell me I'm wrong.
You're absolutely right. 100%. It has to be a positive experience. And whenever in sales, I'm networking with people, I'm like, tell me about you, tell me about what you do. And then inevitably it leads to them telling me or asking me about what I do. And then me asking how I can help grow their business and how they can grow my business. And in the dating world, I actually applied that with several people that I met. I was like, okay, so here's the thing. I think you're a cool guy. I think you think I'm a cool girl. I think we could probably agree that we're not a good match. But, I'll definitely keep, and I always twisted it up. I will keep my eyes open for if I meet somebody that I think would be a good match for you. And then in turn, they would say, oh, I'll do that for you too.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%.
Can you imagine it? But here's one of the problems is they think it's rejection when someone doesn't like them. They think everybody has to like them. Everybody has to accept them. Everybody has to love their product. that makes a horrible salesperson. It makes a horrible experience, and it absolutely closes off their network to, and I've actually had some really good experiences where I've been out on a date, a first date. I met someone online or whatever. We went on a date, had great conversation. There was a lot of things in common, but there was zero spark, and we both owned it. Still stayed friends to this day. She actually moved on and got married, but she's set me up with some of her friends. She's like, oh my God, like I have one of my really good friends. I love it. You two like have so much in common. You even nerd out over Star Wars stuff, which I don't get. But she made the introduction, and I had a really good experience with her friend. But if I had tried to drive it home, if I had tried to make the sale and close the deal, it would have been a bad experience. I never would have met the other person who I actually had a really good time with.
So, and I am a person that I didn't waste time with people.
I feel you.
You know me enough to know that like I'm a pretty like direct, straight shooter, right? And so I'm a person, I'm out on a first date with somebody, and I'm like, I think you're really cool. And it's not personal. Like I'm not going to give you the whole it's not you, it's me thing, but it's not personal by any means. I'm looking for something very, very specific. And so I don't want to waste your time or mine.
Yep. And I'm about that. My time is so limited. I know yours is. It's so precious. I don't have time to just keep trying to force a square peg into a round hole. It just absolutely isn't going to work. Let's be honest with each other, and you go find your round peg. So if you can start looking at dating really similar to sales and some of the great sales techniques that lead to great experience, repeat business, repeat customers, it actually, I know it's silly, but it actually starts to make sense. So
it sounds like, I don't know if my product is for you or not, but I mean, if it is, it's like, what's the product here, Eddie?
What are you willing to pay for it? But no, which is funny. I did actually get purchased at a bachelor auction about a month ago.
Yes, you did.
That was an interesting experience.
What was it? $3,700?
I'm like blushing. Yeah, $3,700.
She definitely bought the product.
Yeah, she did. It's funny because in the video you can see my face. I'm up there on stage, and I genuinely, I was joking beforehand. People were like, how much you think you're going to go for? And I was like, $3.25. I'll be happy. But I really thought it would get up to like $200 or $300.
You know what? I actually have a clip of that video right here.
Oh, shush. No, you don't.
I'm just kidding. I'm not going to play it.
I'm sure you could Google it or find it on Facebook.
No, I can find it. I know exactly where it is, but I won't do that to you or her.
Well, it's funny because you can see my face, because all of a sudden it goes, because I think they started out at like 300 or 400 or whatever, and it goes like 300 or 400, 500, 900, 1200. I'm going, you just see my face go, what? And because I was kind of up there goofing off and dancing and whatnot. And then I go into utter shock. And yeah, I went to 3,700. So, and I literally just stood there just like, really? Did that just happen?
Mm-hmm.
But it went for a charity. It went for a good cause. It was a lot of fun. All right, so let's get back on topic. No more. Right. We're not here to bite.
Bringing it in.
So let's talk about it. Once you kind of understand about how to really present yourself. So our third episode that we're going to get into, not this one, this is our second one, is going to be about how to create an effective profile. And I'm really excited about that one. But before we get into that, let's talk about the actual dating. When we finally get out there, what are some of the ways that we can get out there and start meeting people? I'll be real, I have not had the best experiences with online dating. It took me a lot to figure it out and start having kind of fun with it. But I know you've got some experiences with it too, and I'm excited to hear those. But let's talk about what are some ways to get out and actually meet people to date. So there's the old school stuff where obviously there's work, there's friends, again, networking in sales, friends that know friends that know friends that know friends. The whole 6 degrees of separation, you're 6 degrees away from meeting anyone on the planet. And then of course there's online dating.
Well, and there's other things too. I mean, there's Meetup, like you can go to meetup.com, and if you have, like, if you're a hiker, you can go on and go into hiking groups. There's singles groups in Meetup and different.
I'm actually part of the, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Hike with Me AZ dating group. I'm on that because I love to hike. I'm actually working towards going to Everest, hopefully in November. So I'm part of the, I'd totally forgotten about that. I'm glad you brought that up. But yeah, so Meetup.
So are you the guy on online dating that is like, must like to hike, must like to be in the gym 5 days a week?
Oh, God, no, not with this belly. You kidding me?
I wanted to gag every time I saw those. I'm like, freaking Arizona, man. Seriously.
No, and I love that you brought that up because we're going to get into that in our next episode, like some of the do's and don'ts of what you put on your profile, because everybody must like the outdoors, must like puppies, must like, it's like, oh my gosh, that's so boring.
I was like, give me real stuff. Like, I want to see real stuff, like real.
Right. That's going to be a fun episode. I'm looking forward to that.
My favorite ones though were like, must like to go to the gym 5 days a week, and then they got this big old pot belly, right? And you're like, oh, so I have to go to the gym 5 days a week. You don't. No, we'll talk more about that next week, because I saw some crazy stuff on there. So, but I mean, definitely online dating has become more of a prominent thing. And I have to tell you, during COVID, I was amazed. Like, we're sitting there and we're watching TV, right? And we see an ad for like Match.com, and they're talking about virtual dates. And, you know, people have on their masks, and then they sit down to their computer and they have their glass of wine, just like you and I are sitting here right now. And that's how they're dating. And I'm like, thank God I'm not single right now, because, no way. And I remember back in the day, like when I was on online dating, everybody was like, let's FaceTime, let's do this. And I know that it's good to do that, but I hated being on FaceTime at the time. Now I could do it no problem because we're so used to this setting.
Yeah.
But then I was like, FaceTime, why do I want to get up? Like, I can't even get the right angle. Like, what am I?
Oh, we're going to talk about that in the next episode. Those weird 3/4 boob shots that women do, or it's like,
photos.
Oh, I have it up here. You don't see the, yeah. No. Adults we're going into. So yeah, the meetups, the hiking groups, the finding people with the similar interest groups. There's so many ways to meet people online.
Business networking groups.
Yeah, business networking groups in business. My cousin who helps me run the fire, I own the Firehouse Subs here at Surprise, and my cousin runs it with me. She's my absolute best friend. We've been best friends since we were kids. And she always jokes that because I'll have women that just like come in like looking for me and trying to meet me there. So hey, if you find someone you like, maybe stalk them at their business. I don't know, stalk them at their.
I have to tell you a funny story about that I've never told you. So when I lived over in Surprise, after we had met and everything, my sister and I went into the Firehouse Subs one day, and you happened to be there. But before I saw you, I asked if you were there because I just wanted to say hi and show you that I was supporting your business. The person behind the counter kind of looked at me like, another one.
It's, oh my gosh, it's been
saying hi. Like, I don't understand why they're looking at me like that. So now that you say that, it makes sense.
it's been such a weird dynamic because I'm just, yeah, I'll tell you, maybe we'll bunny trail here for a second, but it's kind of a cute story. So I was getting ready to leave. It's like 5, 6 o'clock at night, and my manager comes back in the office. He goes, "Hey, there's a lady out here who wants to talk to you about catering." So I go, "Okay." So I grab my pad, I set my backpack down, I grab my pad of paper, and I go out there, and there's this real cute blonde gal with this little boy that was there. And she goes, "Hey, I'm Christina," and shook her hand. And I sat down with her and I said, "Okay, so what are you looking for?" And she's like, "Well, it's like a bunch of single women. We get together once a month. There's like 30 of us, and we're just looking to do some catering." I said, "Okay, so blah, blah, blah. Do you just want the sandwiches? Do you want?" I started asking these questions, but as I'm asking her these questions, like the answers got weird and like more and more weird. So
they
eventually,
wanted you to be the server.
Well, I asked her because she asked, "Do you deliver?" And I said, "Yeah, we can definitely deliver if it's over a certain amount and whatnot, and depends on where you're at." I go, "Where do you live?" And she goes, north, just north of here." And I go, "Well, like where? You know, like where north of here? Prescott north of here? Well, I probably won't deliver that, but." And she gets really embarrassed, and so I put my pen down and I said, "Okay, why are you really here?" She goes, "Well," she goes, "you spoke at a conference a couple months ago," and she goes, "I happen to be in town on business, and my friend is kind of crushing on you and wanted me to come in and see if you're real." And I was like, "Okay, who's your friend?" She's like, "I'm not going to tell you." But the funny thing is her and I like really hit it off. She stayed there for another 2 hours. Her and I talked, and I laughed so hard with her. We connected so fast, so quick, and I laughed so much that my stomach hurt the next day. Like it was
Wow.
so after about 2 hours and stuff, I literally I had so much fun. She was such a great person. I walked her out to her car. She actually lived in Idaho and she had come down for business. So for her business, she has to travel like a couple weeks every month, and she'll fly to Phoenix, drop her son off with her mom, and then she'll go do the traveling that she needs to for a couple weeks and then come back to Phoenix. And so I walked her out to her car, and I gave her a hug, and she goes, "This really sucks." And I go, "What?" And she goes, "I have to tell my friend that I really, really like you." And she goes, "Here I was supposed to spy on you for her." And so anyways, the long distance thing just didn't work, but she was an absolutely amazing thing. My whole point to this though is you never know how you're going to meet really good people to date. Like, so don't be so cornered on, I have to do this, I have to do it this way. Just be freaking open to meeting people and getting to know them and letting people get to know the real you, not the fake you, the mask you, let them get to know the real you and let them make their own decisions. And hopefully they can return that. Things will go a lot more smoother and a lot quicker. But let's talk about some of the more common ways to do it. Now we're talking about online. Let's talk about some of the pros of online dating. Compared to before the internet dating, you go back 70s, 80s or whatever, when people were out dating, they had such a small circle of influence to pull from. It was at work. It was maybe if they went out to the bars, that was probably one of the bigger ways to meet a larger, I guess, portion of people. But there really wasn't a global chance to date. Nowadays, some of the pros of online dating is you have a massive pool. You literally have a global pool of people that you can meet. There are billions of people that you can actually go out and try and meet through online. So there's a larger pool. To me, that's a pro.
As long as people are honest. Yeah.
Yeah. That's where we're going to get into the cons in a minute. Faster filtering of potentials as well. So a lot of these websites have some really good algorithms that have gotten better over the years. The archaic ones didn't really work that well. Nowadays, they're starting to get pretty intricate. A lot of that has to do with technology getting ahead of itself and the amount of data, which is kind of scary too, about you that is out there to be collected. There's a faster filtering of potentials. You actually have control online over your anonymity and to how much of your personal information you want them to have. You can also keep healthy physical boundaries a lot longer, getting to know people over the internet through Zoom calls, through FaceTime, through texting and whatnot, through talking on the phone. It's, to me, that's a little bit healthier. So you can keep healthy physical boundaries longer. It's not, back in the day, you meet someone at work, you date someone at work, it doesn't end good. It makes work really uncomfortable. One of the other pros for me about online dating is you can end it immediately and completely for the most part. You can just block them. If you're done, if it's turning bad really fast, boom, you're blocked, you're deleted on all my social media and whatnot.
I've blocked a lot of people. Yeah.
You should see my list.
Yeah. I was like, whew. And the con of it, this whole thing is like, and we were talking about this a little bit in the last episode. Okay, being a female in online dating, it's like a full-time job. Okay, you get so many messages in a day and it's overwhelming. And how do you, like, at first I was like, okay, I'm gonna be really kind. And so I'm gonna try to respond to everybody.
Oh my God, no.
After the first 2 days, I was like, I can't possibly respond to everybody. It's not possible. Like, I can't. And I just wanted to be a kind person. And so I was trying really hard. I didn't want anybody to feel rejected and all of that. Well, you get over that really, really quick. You get over it really fast because there's no way. I mean, literally all day long, I'm like trying to answer these messages. And I'm like, okay, well, after 2 weeks of online dating, going on about 7, 8, 9 first dates, I was getting ready to turn off my profile because I was like, this sucks. I hate this. Nobody tells the truth. They don't look like they say they look. And then I have like no drug policy. And then here you go. Like, I'm on the date and they're like, well, I have something to tell you. I smoke weed all day, every day. I'm like, what? Okay.
The squinty eyes like didn't tell you.
Yeah, like you can smell it like radiating from them as they're sitting there, and you're like, you weren't truthful with me. Like, why bring me here? Why?
Well,
Why do this?
I've actually seen an increase in people being honest even about that. You see that whole 420 friendly and whatnot on there. Like, I love that people are willing to be that honest about the things that they do, you know, in their spare time. I'd love to see more honest profiles, but you're right. One of the biggest cons is understanding or being able to have to the filtering through all the BS and the masks that people try to wear.
The biggest thing for me too is height. Okay, I am not a short girl. I'm not. And it's not that like height is really important to me. It's
how tall are you?
I'm 5'7", but I only wear heels. So every day I'm 5'9" with my shoes. But like, and I'm
okay,
like,
so wait, on your profiles, did you put 5'9" or did you put 5'7"?
I put 5'7", but always wear heels.
You're honest, okay.
Yeah, no, and my pictures were like yesterday, okay? Like they weren't,
oh Lord.
And they weren't filtered. Like it was me, period. I don't filter my photos at all. I don't like that. And I was just recently on a podcast with somebody that was talking about like when you do videos and when you do photos and things like that, how do you just be your authentic self? And I'm like, don't use filters.
Yeah.
Like, just be you.
You're starting to get on to episode 3.
I know, and I'm sorry, but
that's going to be a fun one. That's going to be a fun one.
So I would go like,
you're right.
This guy would be like, yeah, I'm 5'9", and I'd get there and he's 5'5".
Well, yeah, but with cowboy boots, he's 5'9".
No. With cowboy boots, he was 5'5".
No offense to the 5'5" people out there.
No, but I need to feel like a woman. So they have to be at least my height. They're like close to it. Like, I don't care if I'm an inch taller or whatever, but like somewhere in there, like we got to be like eye to eye. It's how I feel.
I got Shania Twain running through my head now. Man, I feel like a woman. So yes, I get that you need to feel like a woman, and you've got your idea of what manliness is, and part of that is the height ratio between the two of you, with and without heels.
Just even with me, just be with me, not here. Like we can't be here. I feel a little awkward with you being here.
All right. That's do that. So some of the cons, since we're on that, mastering the filter through actually takes work. A lot of people, they get onto these online dating sites and they think it's just going to be a boom, 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 boom. It's not. You have to actually start mastering the filter through. And if you're willing to do this, you'll start seeing a commonality between the unhealthy people. It'll start becoming obvious. Even just going through their pictures, you'll be able to start seeing what their insecurities are. But it takes some work to master the filter through. Algorithms can either be a pro or a con, because some of the algorithms, people start knowing how to work them and how to put the right words in there so that they match with more people. It almost becomes a game to them. Mm-hmm. People can also change over time. So if it's an old profile that's a year or two old, like you said, with the pictures, it's not even really that person anymore. And people
Or
can
it's a completely different person. That happened once.
yeah, that's insane. I've had that only happen once to me. And
Yeah.
There's been a few times where I've been kind of not really catfished, but it was like 6, 7, 8-year-old video, or I mean photos of them, and when they showed up, it was not what they had said. Most, probably 2 or 3 of them I followed through with, and I went ahead and had a nice dinner. One of them, I was very blunt with her. So she had had pictures that were over like 15 years old. She had her age as that. She was way older than me, and she was about 250 pounds more than she had said in her profile.
Wow.
And I said, look, you need to own yourself.
Mhm.
Trying to pretend you're this person, hoping that you can talk me into something after we meet, doesn't work. And I said, I appreciate you coming out, but I left. I didn't even follow through with dinner that time.
Well, no, because you feel so lied to at that point. And
Yes.
and that's the hard part of online dating. I mean, honestly, my boyfriend and I met online, and he's one of 2 people that made it to a second date. And the night we talked for the first time, I was on my way to my second date with the other person, and he asked me to be exclusive with him, and he was a really nice guy. But I couldn't get my boyfriend out of my head from our conversation. And I was like, I need a few more dates before I can make that decision.
Well, high five to Jay. Way to go, bud.
Yeah, our first date was 12 hours, which is not recommended, people, not recommended for safety purposes.
And, I am all about letting go of as many like preconceived notions and assumptions as you possibly can, and just letting life happen. I've had some that I was really excited to go on the first date, that didn't last 5 minutes. And I've had some that I was like on the fence with that ended up being absolutely amazing. And it was, a 4 or 5 hour date.
I broke all the rules with him. I even let him pick me up.
On your first date?
Yeah.
Now, okay, what was it that made you break that rule?
We just had such a connection spiritually and mentally and intellectually and we had talked for about a week at that point before we actually set our date. And I was just totally comfortable with him. I really was. And it was really weird. Like, he was like a male version of me. Like, he sent a picture of his living room to me. And it was exactly the same color scheme and almost identical to my living room and how it was set up. Like, it was just, and he sent me his first, and I'm like, get out of here. And I sent him mine, and he's like, holy crap. The only difference was he had leather cream couches. I had cloth cream couches. But like stone coffee tables, fireplace TV stand, like everything. So
everybody watching this podcast, I need you to take note. Dick pics no, living room pics yes.
Yes, and he never sent me a dick pic. He was always very respectful. He was very, very, very respectful. But at the same time, he was like fun and flirty. I mean, we talked for hours on the phone. And it's funny because now that I know him, he's not a phone talker like that at all. But I mean, we just had faith-based conversations and just all kinds of stuff. So when he's like, I don't know why, but I feel like I'm supposed to pick you up, which was a big deal because at the time he lived all the way in Desert Ridge and I lived all the way in Peoria. So we actually spent the whole 12-hour date pretty much at his house, just hanging out and chilling, which I would never do
on a first date. Yeah,
on a first date ever.
But you knew what his living room looked like, and you knew.
Right, I felt comfortable because it was same as mine. Yeah.
All right, so let's talk about. This is an interesting part of this podcast is scams and how to spot them. So most scams, because there are a lot of scams out there for guys, and maybe you can enlighten us on the lady side, but on the guy's side, it's heavily inundated with porn. There are so many catfishers out there trying to get you to go from the dating sites to porn sites to what's that new one that everyone's in, the fans only crap that's out there. So women are actually setting up, it's almost like an Instagram thing now where you have to pay to be able to see their profile, and you pay extra to, I don't know, someone was trying to explain this to me. You can actually pay extra to request videos and pictures from them to be posted. Yeah, actually, it was a buddy of mine, his daughter, he found out she was on it, but she's in college. Yeah,
Oh no.
yeah. So for guys, that's kind of some of the things we run into a lot, is the whole trying to filter guys off the dating sites and into like porn.
I didn't even know that.
Yeah,
It's new every day.
Yeah, not that anyone really needed to know that, but that's some of the things that a lot of the men face, these fake profiles that look like young, beautiful women, just really trying to get you over to these paid sites. They're really easy to spot. They're always, if it's actually, we'll get into that in a minute. But let's talk about scams. So some of the most common scams have similar traits. Brand new profiles is one of them to look out for. So if you're getting messaged by someone and it's a brand new profile, take a longer time to get to know them and ask the questions. Very few pictures, little to no personal information, like the things that they're into and whatnot. Misspellings and bad grammar. You think this would be obvious, but it's not. So a lot of these scams originate from overseas. And it's really important that you pay attention to how they say things, how they spell things out. A lot of them are using like Google Translate and whatnot, so the words don't come out just right.
They say, hello, dear.
Yeah.
Number one sign of a scam is if they call you dear.
Hi, beautiful.
Yeah. Gorgeous, blah, 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 whatever. And then there's always misspellings afterwards. They do it on Facebook and all that stuff too. So.
Yep. So similar stories. A lot of the scams use very similar stories. And like you just said, they either have this weird version of they work overseas for the government, they're in a military or construction job, or they have a political career that keeps them overseas and makes them able to have, or it keeps them from having a contact very often. So it explains the long absences and whatnot.
They're widowed.
Anything that's going to pluck to the heartstrings, and they are overly complimentary early on. Almost always it's motivated by money and money alone. So one of the things we're going to play now, and this is actually pretty fascinating. Each one of these audios is about 4 minutes long. We got this off of the FBI site. So the FBI actually has a portion of their site dedicated to what they call romance scams. And they actually have special agents that are focused on and dedicated to finding and prosecuting and putting an end to these romance scams. So the first audio is actually from a victim talking about her experience with a romance scam. And then the second audio is the special agent over that investigation. It just, again, we want to throw this in there because it's a fascinating look at both the victim and the investigative side to it.
All right, here we go.
Usually he would read my wall, I would read his wall, we would post things. He would like things, I would like things. Then it got to, we would just share emails. We started sharing pictures. I knew that just based on the conversations that we'd had, that he was someone that I would like to meet. I felt a real soul connection with him right away. And we sang to each other, we prayed with each other. We talk about what happened at church on Sunday. There wasn't an immediate talk about getting together. He was trying to finish up a job in California, and he needed somebody to help finish that job up. And so I sent him. I thought about it long and hard. I prayed about it, and I've always been a very giving person. And I figured if I had money in the account, that I could send him some money, and he promised to have it back within 24, 48 hours. And I thought, could do that. No one would ever know, and I'd be okay. But, you know, one thing kept happening after another. He'd need more money because he was coming in over budget. Things didn't get done on time. You know, he needed a lawyer. He had to take a money loan, and it needed to be paid back. Part of me thinks that he's going to come through and pay me back what he owes me. And you know, swoop in here, be the knight in shining armor. But it's just so absurd that there's a big part of me that doesn't believe that. And that is where this is all so pitiful, is because if he's a scammer, I've been so brainwashed and I've lost everything. It's all I had. It's any inheritance that I could have passed on to my daughter. The loss of money was my future, and knowing that I wouldn't have to work, that I could just make it to the ripe old age of whatever and be perfectly comfortable. The loss that I've suffered emotionally, I think, has even been more traumatic. I can't even imagine a man, a person that could be this bad. So I think of him, I can't think of him that way. My mind keeps me from thinking of him that way, because there can't be a man in this world that could be this horrible, to have purposefully done what he's done to me. I don't want this to happen to anybody else. If they're real and if the love is real, they're going to want to see you as soon as possible. I mean, it's been 2.5 years and I still haven't seen his face.
That was really sad, but I do have to tell you that I have been professionally scammed that way in my life, in person.
Really?
Yes, that's a story I've never told you, but her story really hit me because I was like, wow, because you think you're smart. That's the thing. I'm an intelligent woman, right? And how it happened was I was at a nightclub in Orlando. It was the first nightclub that I had ever been to in my life. So you could tell I was naive. I was newly divorced from my children's father of 12 years. I've talked about that controlling relationship in my life. And so I was free. Like, I was out with my friends for the first time in my life. And this man walks up to me, very charming, very handsome, very cool guy. We start talking. He's nice. My friends, their spidey senses are up, like, I don't know. But we started seeing each other, and we saw each other for a few months. And during that time, he got me to give him money and co-sign for a car for him, because I didn't understand the ramifications of that. I was stupid. I was naive. I had been sheltered for 12 years. I had no idea. And he's still out there. He still does these things. Whenever I'm in Orlando, I tend to run into him. And it's just crazy because I hired a private investigator. When I finally realized what was going on, I hired a private investigator to try to find the car, number one, and try to find him. Like, what was the real story with this guy, number two? And I got to tell you, like, the private investigator would have a tail on him and then couldn't keep up with him, like could not capture him where he lived and where the car was being held. The crazy thing is from what the private investigator could tell, he only lived 15 minutes from me.
Wow.
I was told he lived an hour from me. He was married. He had a mistress. His mistress ran an escort service, probably still does, out of Orlando. And I had somebody tip me off where the car was. And I found out that the mistress that ran the escort service is the one that picked me out that night at the club for him. She picked me. I was the target of their whole scheme of things. I don't know how many other women that they have done this to. And when I found out where the car was, I went and repoed it myself. He had a GPS on it. So like they were like looking in the neighborhood where I had it hidden, and they were like knocking on doors. And I had to like take my car and his car to the car dealership and have them trade in both of the cars so that he couldn't get it, because the law says if he's on it too, so he can have it unless you get rid of it, right? So I got rid of it, but that night they were searching for me everywhere. His mistress and his wife both called me and asked me to give him back the car.
Oh, wow.
What? So yeah, I mean, I was 31, completely naive, had never been in a world like that. And he destroyed my credit. He got a hold of my social security number, ran up several credit cards in my name.
Yeah.
And I'm talking, like, when I found out about the credit cards, I call it, I'm like, what was all this money spent on? Strip clubs, VIP service with bottle service at different clubs. Like, that was his world. And he had other women paying for this.
And here's the thing though, is you had even said the words, I was stupid.
I felt stupid.
Highly intelligent people have this happen to them. These scammers, they are not dumb, and neither are their victims. I mean, they do tend to target the elderly or the young, but yeah, you can't beat yourself up for it, because these guys are practiced. They've been working on this for years. And like, this guy had a network of people, including his wife and his mistress, that were helping him. You weren't fighting this alone. And again, I guarantee you weren't the first. You're definitely not the last victim that they had.
Well, no, I became a friend with a bouncer at the club like years later, and I was telling him about the whole thing. And so he started watching, and this is years later, like 10 years later, same club. And he started watching because he knew exactly who they were. And he was like, you're right. I'm watching this, Tina. He's like, they're like, literally, she will pick somebody out. She will go tell him, he will go up to them, and they will leave together.
So this is why it's important that you do research. And if your spidey senses start tingling at all about someone, take a step back.
Mm-hmm.
Ask a lot more questions. Don't rush into anything, no matter how good it makes you feel, because that's what these people are practiced at. And again, the FBI, and this is where we got these audios from, they have a whole side of their site on romance scams. Educate yourself on this. So,
well, like, there is a site out there that I know about that we use in real estate and different things. Like, if we're trying to figure out like this abandoned home, who owns it, stuff like that. It's called truepeoplesearch.com. So please write it down, program it into your phone, truepeoplesearch.com. It is a free site. And if you have somebody's phone number, you can put it into that site and it'll give you a bunch of information on them, like their email, their last known addresses, who they're related to, like all of these different things. It's actually scary when you look at this site. Like, when I look at that site, I can see everywhere that I've ever lived, who my family is, who I'm even friends with. I mean, it's crazy. But in the dating world, that site really helps, because if you feel a little off, you can punch in their information in there and you'll at least know that where they say they live, like, okay, they live in this town, it's right there. Like, that's where they live, stuff like that. So do some research.
Absolutely. Especially if anything starts to feel off, don't be afraid to do your own research.
Mm-hmm.
And this next audio clip is actually from the FBI agent that helped investigate for this lady. And she's got some really good advice.
All right, well, let's listen to it.
Romance schemes usually involve a perpetrator assuming an online identity, and it's for the purpose of tricking victims. So what they do is they search out vulnerable women, generally speaking. Men can be targets as well, but it's generally women, usually above the age of 50. Anyone is subject to this. If you're online, if you're using the internet, as long as you have money and you're willing to give it, then you could be a target. They'll hunt through these various networking sites and they'll find somebody who may be a good target, and they use what the victim has put on their profile page. So you have to be very careful about what you post, because they'll use that to manipulate the victim. And they'll develop a relationship very quickly. They'll try to endear themselves to the victims. They'll say whatever the victim wants to hear, and they will often propose marriage quickly. So they develop this intense relationship. And they do seek out people who may be divorced or widowed. So they're people who are vulnerable, who may be desperately looking for love. And again, they will manipulate that victim and endear themselves and gain their trust, and then they'll start asking for money. The perpetrator will state that they have an emergency, that they need money for a job maybe overseas, that they have some type of medical emergency and they need funds. So they promise that they'll repay the victim as soon as the victim sends them money, but the victims never receive their money back. From what we can tell, these are usually criminal organizations that work together. And once a victim becomes a victim in that they send money, they will oftentimes be placed on what's called a sucker list, and their names and identities are shared with other criminals, and they will be targeted for future recruitment. I always tell people when we try to spread the word, if you don't know somebody, don't send them money. Try to research that person's profile that you're getting involved with, and try to do some due diligence. But we're all human. We all make mistakes, and I just hope victims who have fallen prey to this can learn and hopefully not enter into another scam. We have seen victims become victimized again. So I just ask that victims try to learn from the experience and try to share their experience with others so that other people can learn from their experience and not become victimized as well.
Yeah, that was.
Now, I say all of this. I shared my story because I want you guys to know that there's people out there like that for real. And you hear about that kind of stuff on like TV and, the news and that kind of stuff, but you don't ever think that you would meet people like that because we're just oblivious to that. But at the same time, here's what I want to say about that. I picked myself up very quickly. I didn't give up on love and meeting people. I didn't hold that experience against other people that I met in the future. And I think that that's really important. I think isolating, okay, that's one incident. I need to be more careful is really, really important.
Good. And I appreciate you sharing that story. I know it makes you a little more vulnerable and whatnot. And it's kind of hard to admit. I know some pretty smart people that have fallen victim to that, both men and women. These people are very practiced. They have network, and again, they are very good at disseminating information and being able to use that against you. So some of the things that the FBI recommends on to avoid this is, one, be careful what you post and make public online. Scammers can use details shared on social media and dating sites to better understand and target you. These people don't just randomly throw things out there. There are some that do that, but most of them, especially the ones that are pretty practiced at it, will literally spend hours going through your profile, coming up with who they think you are, the things that you need to hear. And they have practiced these sentences to say to people like that, widows, like the FBI agent was saying, widows, people that are extremely lonely. So if you're posting a whole bunch of videos of, God, I just wish I had someone in my life, I just blah, 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 that actually starts to make you a little bit of a target.
Yep.
They will run through months and months and months of your posts on social media and basically build their own profile about you and how they're able to get to you.
Mm-hmm.
So be careful what you're posting and making public online. I'm not saying don't share yourself publicly on social media, but just be aware of that. So if people do start plucking your heartstrings, that might be something that kind of sets you off. So research. Here's the other thing: when you meet someone, make sure you research the person's photo and profile using online searches like you had just talked about. Absolutely fantastic. What was the name of it again?
TruePeopleSearch.com. But you can also put in photographs of people online. There are several different sites. I did this for my stepson because he had been talking to somebody for a long time, years and years and years, but had never met this person in person, didn't really know much about them. We're pretty sure it was a catfish the whole time. I even think he still talks to her, which is really scary. I mean, they started talking when they were like 12. And, here we are 10 years later, he's still talking to this person. So I took the photographs that she had sent him or that her friends had sent him and put them in, and it came up that it was a regular catfish photo.
Oh.
And because I used to find people for the attorneys. So like, I'm good at doing research on people. So I like popped it in there and I'm like, okay, like this is not a real photo. It's used all the time.
I kind of think it's a genetic thing that women are good at doing like research on people. Y'all are masters at it, especially when you get together with your groups of ladies and you research someone. I've had people send me stuff that I didn't even know was online. What's that?
I've gotten much better at it. Like from experience, I've gotten much better at it. It was funny too, because when I met Jake, he was like, here's my divorce papers. See, they're signed. Here's my, here's my credit score.
And this is just part of us growing as a society. It really is learning to do these things, learning to master these things, learning to use the online world really to our advantage. So research the person's photos and profile using online searches. See if their image, their name, or details have been used anywhere else. Mm-hmm. This is an important one. Go slowly. Ask a lot of questions. Take your time. I don't even know if it's called love at first sight anymore. Maybe instead of S-I-G-H-T, it's S-I-T-E, love at first sight. But go slowly. Ask a lot of questions. Okay, this one, beware if the individual seems too perfect or quickly asks you to leave the dating service or social media site to communicate elsewhere. Some of the most popular things that I've seen and heard from people is if within 1 or 2 days they ask you, hey, come over here to the what was it called? WhatsApp?
WhatsApp.
Yeah, that's one of the real big ones. But if they try and get you off of the social media sites onto a different platform for communicating, that could be a huge red flag. This is another one. Beware if the individual attempts to isolate you from friends and family and request inappropriate photos or financial information that can later be used against you. This is really an important one. And this is one that I've seen personally happen. I have a young man that I know that came to talk to me because he was petrified, and he had met this beautiful girl online. Her pictures were absolutely beautiful. She was so cute. She was very flirty. She was very fun with him for several months. She shared some inappropriate pictures with him and kept pushing him for inappropriate pictures. He finally gave in. And again, this is a young kid. He was actually had just graduated high school. So he's, 19 years old. He shared some inappropriate pictures with him, and immediately it was a guy communicating with him saying that he was going to take those photos and send them to all of his family if he didn't send them $1,000.
Wow.
Yeah. So months of this flirty banter and these really cute pictures and these sexual and very exposing pictures that she had supposedly been, it was a dude the whole time. And it was all about just extorting the money. And now that they had pictures of him with his face in it, they were blackmailing him.
Wow.
Was very humiliating for the poor kid. He got through it, obviously made a police report, and I think it ended up becoming an FBI investigation as well. But again, don't be doing these things. Don't be sending these pictures, especially with your face in it, to people you've never actually met. So once they start trying to,
and I'm sorry to cut you off, but I always tell like girls, like, listen, if you're sending a picture of yourself, like, make sure your face isn't in it. Like, if you're gonna send it, because they're gonna send it, they're gonna do it. Okay, they're gonna do it.
Yeah.
Make sure there's nothing that identifies you.
I'm gonna be blunt here. If your idea of dating is sending nudes online, you're not healthy enough to be dating. I'm just going to throw it out there. I know people want to believe that this is just the new way of dating and whatnot. It's absolutely ridiculous. Your body and who you are should be something that you value enough as a precious thing to give as a gift to the person you absolutely are in love with and you're committed to. If you're doing that online, you're just not healthy enough to be dating. And women do it too. I know men do it probably way more than women do, but I've had quite a few unsolicited pictures and I've told each one of them pretty much the same thing, is that I don't need this. I don't want this. I don't know you enough. Yeah. And if you can't value yourself enough, you and I are not going to be a good match.
I have actually said Oh, goody. I have more photos to share with my friends so we can laugh about it.
Oh my gosh. All right. So another thing, beware if the individual promises to meet in person, then it always comes up with an excuse why they can't do it.
Yep.
If you have not met in person after the first few months, even if there's a long distance there, you have a really good reason to be suspicious. You need to start doing some background check. Never send money to anyone you have only communicated with online or even talked to on the phone. Never.
Mm-hmm.
This is off of the FBI website. Never send money to anyone you have not met in person and been able to verify all of the things that they've said.
Yep.
Use video chats, use meeting talks, and make sure that they are who they say they are with their face, especially. There's so many things out there. There's Zoom, FaceTime, Skype, Hangout. I'm sure we can come up with a whole list of things that can actually put a face with it. So you see, oh yeah, the picture they sent me, the picture that's on their profile is the real person.
Right. It's really important to do that. And I was sharing with Ed earlier that I used to be so uncomfortable with like doing FaceTime, stuff like that. I'm like, where's the angle? Like, I don't know. But now in the environment that we've been in where this is the norm, right? It's become so much easier to actually do a FaceTime with somebody and it not be a big deal.
Yeah.
And I'm not in the dating world, but I mean, a lot like my kids, everybody calls me on FaceTime, you know? So, and even when I go out of town for work or whatever, Jay and I, we use our duo to talk. So it's important.
All right. So I didn't mean for this whole podcast to kind of turn into kind of a Debbie Downer thing, but it's really important that we talked about that. That's really important. That
You might have to do a 4th episode.
Yeah. And hey, I'd be okay with that as well. Actually, I wouldn't even mind doing a full episode on each of the different sites and really delve into them because we're only going to talk about them briefly here on the different ways to date online. So I want to real quick how I got into online dating. It was nothing that had ever really appealed to me. So when my wife and I separated, we went through the divorce. I lived in this little condo community, absolutely loved it. I had some really good friends that were around my age that none of us were dating each other. It was men and women. And we all just hung out. We went to the pool. We had barbecues. Well, one of them was over at my house. I had built a little movie theater in my loft and we were watching a movie and she was sitting next to me and she was showing me all of these, like you said, the 30 to 40 new requests a day from men to chat.
Yeah.
Laughing about the inappropriate pictures, showing me how ridiculous some of the profiles looked. And she goes, you should really do this. And I'm like, you're showing me all this and you want me to do online dating? She's like, it's really not that bad.
You would stand out.
Yes, but her and her daughters were teenagers. I gave them my phone and they actually downloaded Plenty of Fish. And yes, I know that's really more of a hookup site. I figured out. But they made my profile. I asked me a bunch of questions. They made the profile and I tried online dating for the first time. And I'll be real, I don't know how you ladies put up with that many new messages a day. I was getting 3 or 4 new ones a day and it was so overwhelming to me. I can't imagine anywhere from 20 to 40 is what I'm hearing is the average for women to get a day. Unbelievable. I was only on it for a couple months. I had a couple cool dates off of it, but nothing that really lasted and nothing that I felt would, really be worth to stay on it. So I ended up deleting it. So I give like Plenty of Fish. I'm going to be real. I gave it like a 3 on 10 scale. And I'm going to put Tinder in there, even though I was never on Tinder. I'm going to put that in there. Have you tried those?
I was never on Tinder. I was on Plenty of Fish for like 3 days. I was like, I'm out of here. No.
Okay. So on a 10 scale, what would you give it?
I would say compared to the other ones that are out there that you actually pay a little bit for, I would say probably a 2 to a 3. Definitely.
Oh, good. So
I would say Tinder's probably a 1.
All right.
Yeah.
That's just a meat market site. That's all that is.
Right. Not what I was looking for at all. Like no.
All right. So Facebook. So because I was being asked to speak at these conferences and talk about dating online, I did try some different apps just to see how they worked, how the algorithm worked. Facebook came out with theirs. I was on it for maybe a couple weeks just to look at it. Maybe it's because it was in its infancy. I haven't been on it for a long time, but it was horrific. It was absolutely horrible. I don't know what algorithm they're using, but I absolutely didn't match with more than a couple people that I even had a great conversation with, and only one out of all the people I had whatever matched with did I actually become friends with and stay in touch. So Facebook, the dating app, it didn't make sense to me. The algorithm gave me nothing close to really what I was compatible with, and I give that one a 4 on 10 scale.
I never tried that one.
Okay.
Never tried that one. Zoosk. That's where Jay and I met. I did Match and Zoosk at that time because I wanted to see the comparisons of the two.
Sure. And that's actually what we're getting into next, is the paid site. So
yeah. So I mean, did I skip ahead?
No, you're good. You're leading right into it perfectly. So let's talk about Match first. So Match, it's a paid site. To me, it had a decent algorithm, and it was about 50% of the women that it was saying I was compatible with, I agreed with. Half of them I absolutely didn't agree with. I didn't see why it was even showing me them. It was too ad heavy. I don't know if I just wasn't paying for a high enough subscription. Way too many ads for me, and I gave it a 6 on 10. So what was your experience?
Agree with that. I would agree with that, probably. Yeah, I found, because I was on there, and then I had my big surgery and medical issues and all that. So I went off, and then I went back on. And it was funny because after 6 months, what I found on Match was it was all the same people that were there before, like serial online daters. They even like welcomed me back. Like they were saying like, oh, good to see you back. What happened? I'm like, okay, you guys this is definitely the internet bar here. Like I don't want to be a part. I do not want to be a serial dater.
Not me either.
So I would say probably a 6.
All right, now tell me about Zeus, because I have zero experience with that. So tell me, and you said you and Jay met on the Zeus?
We did.
Tell me about that.
I went out physically on more dates from Zoosk. I think I went on one with Match. I went on more with Zoosk because I felt like it's a paid site, not expensive. Like you could pay for additional stuff if you wanted to, but you didn't have to. Like you could boost your profile so people saw it like right away or like whatever. I didn't do any of that. I don't know. I just found people to be a little bit more genuine on that site and a little more real. And I did have more first dates on that site because of how it was set up. It was easy to use. It was friendly to use. You didn't have to swipe here or there. You just liked people or sent them a message. It was super simple.
Okay.
And I have to say that I guess with their algorithms, I had never really thought about it, but I guess with their algorithms, that's why I probably went on more first dates.
Interesting. All right. So what would you give Zeus on a 10 scale?
I would say it was between a 7 and an 8, like a 7.5 for sure.
And how much was it a month? How much did you pay?
It was compatible to Match.
Was
like,
it? Okay.
It might have even been a little bit less.
Okay.
Yeah.
What was there any other sites that you did? Because I know Elite Singles came up as one of the top. So how was that?
I have a funny story about that one. So, all right, not a large pool of people at all. Also, they're from all over the place. Okay, so wasn't thrilled to death about the site itself. I gotta say, like their algorithms are so narrow that I would meet like one person every like 2 or 3 days. Okay, they were very narrow.
Okay.
I, however, did start a online dating relationship with somebody, I guess you would call it. I don't know what to call it. He was a celebrity, and
oh yeah,
he was very controlling, like over the top. And a lot of the warning signs that you talk about, like he was there, like I need you to tell me every time you leave your house and what time you're going to be home, because I need to make sure that you're going to be safe. Okay. Now, here's the thing. I verified. Here's the interesting thing. He never told me that he was a celebrity until I already knew. He never hyped that side of himself at all. I had to push him to talk about it with me. He didn't lead with that. He wasn't fake. It was really him. Very, very, very handsome, used to be Ralph Lauren underwear model kind of guy, like, wow. But he didn't lead with any of that. He led with the controlling side. He actually hung up on me once because he was like, I don't like how you just greeted me. I'm going to hang up and call you back and let's try that again. What?
No way.
I call you endearing things. I need you to be endearing back to me.
Wow. So how did that go?
What?
How did that end?
And this guy had a plan, man. He's like, okay, so here's how this is going to work. You're going to come to LA every other week. I'm going to come to you every other week. We're going to go back and forth. After a year of that, we make sure we're compatible. Then we're going to get married and we're going to have a house in both places. What? Marriage? Why? Why would we do that? I don't need to do that. Why would we? I'm not. You'll want to be my wife. You will. And I'm like, and at this point, he still had not told me who he was. I did all my research and figured out who he was before he told me. And it really was him. That's the crazy thing.
I'll be real. That's just creepy though.
It was crazy. It was crazy. And I got to tell you that so me being me and already knowing who he was, finally I was like, can you just tell me a little bit more about you? Like, I need to know more about you. So he finally started telling me everything, and I already knew, and everything that he was telling me was completely backed up in everything that he said. But I finally was like, first of all, since his mom died, he hadn't done a lot of work. So I broke up with him. He just could not even deal with, I guess nobody had ever like broke up with him before, because like he was like, wait a minute, are you breaking up with me? And I'm like, listen, I'm looking for somebody with substance and I just don't feel like you have any.
Okay, so elite singles, what do you give that on a 10 scale?
I gotta give it like a 5.
Okay. All right, so that's kind of a
because I didn't meet anybody else with substance on that site at all. You know, I really didn't. Now, I will say this, there is some sites out there, I can't remember the name of it right now, that are more than elite singles. Anybody can still get into that. So I'm sure it's a huge target for scammers. Okay. And you need to be aware of that. Anybody can get into elite singles. There are some groups out there for people of higher wealth that you have to prove that you make $250 a year or more in order to be on that site. Yeah. And I don't think that those sites are a bad thing if you are more, because you're a target. If you have money, you're a target. And so being in online dating where other people are in the same financial status as you is not a bad thing.
No, and actually that's a perfect segue into one of the other different ways to meet people that I do have a personal story with, and that's professional matchmaking. So I got hit up by a local high-end matchmaking site. First it was through email, then it was through phone calls, and they were really pushy with me about, hey, just come in, meet the staff. And I'm like, look, I really don't need this. I don't need to pay for you to go find people for me to date. I'm doing fine on my own. Oh, but Mr. Cunningham, we'd just like you to come in, just come in. So finally I was like, look, I'll come in, but mostly it's just that I'm fascinated with your whole business model. And I want to know how in the world you make so much money doing what you do. So I went in, drove out to the offices. It was out in Scottsdale. And they go through this whole sales presentation. It takes about 45 minutes. And they're talking about the whole thing. Now, the elite version of this was $10,000 to buy into this. And that came with wardrobe consultants, a psychologist to get you ready to date. And like you had your own dating consultant, and it was fascinating, but there was like this whole thing, and it's for people that got like uber amounts of money. Mm-hmm. and so they show me that package, and I'm like, yeah, look, I'm serious. I'm not paying for someone to go find me people to date. I don't have that problem. I'm not looking for it, but this is pretty fascinating. And so then like, well, we have the lower package, which is $5,000 a year. It doesn't include the psychologist. It doesn't include, the wardrobe consultant or whatever, but it does include this. And I said, I'm not paying for that. I'm not going to pay for that. Well, okay, well, we do have a third level, and it's $2,500 a year, and blah, blah, blah. And I said, no, I'm telling you, I'm not going to pay, especially $2,500 for you to go out and find matches for me. And I said, I appreciate it. Thank you for answering all my questions. I'm just not interested.
Come into my restaurant.
Sometimes. And so the lady goes, okay, look, we've actually had a few of our clients that have reached out and said they wanted to go on a date with you. And so that's why we reached out to you. And I said, well, I appreciate that. I'll go out on a date with them, but I'm not going to pay for it. So basically what they ended up doing was they get, okay, well, we'll put you on the site. But we're not going to look for matches for you. But if any of our clients do actually match with you, we'd love for you to go out on a date with them. Now, this was interesting. So the rules of it were, you would get an email and a text that said, hey, you've received an email. Hey, this is the person. It only had name, age, occupation, and then their phone number. And then you were supposed to text them within 24 hours or call them within 24 hours and set up a date within that week. And so the first one, I got the text, I got the email, I texted her, I said, hey, I matched with you on blank, blank, blank. I'm not going to throw the name out there. Where would you like to go? She met me out here in Surprise. We went, had a great dinner. Physically, not what I was looking for, not anyone I would be attracted to. Great conversation, very intelligent woman. I enjoyed the conversation. And then towards the end, it was 40 minutes of listening to her complain about her ex. So one of the other things you were required to do, though, which was very fascinating, and I actually liked this part of their site, was after your date, they ask for you to go on and be honest about the date, because part of this was the psychologist will sit down with them and talk about how the date went, talk about what the other person's idea of how the date went, so that they can work on these things so that they can get better at dating. And so I was honest. I said, you know what, very intelligent, physically not what I was looking for, but the last 45 minutes of her complaining about her ex and getting really upset about her ex and talking about nothing about her ex really was a huge turnoff. So I obviously didn't go on a date with her. The second one, zero connection whatsoever with her, none. Date was kind of boring. And I actually wrote that in there. And I said, I'm just for honest, because they don't actually see it. The psychologist will talk to them about it. The third one, I called her up and she goes, hey, I'm with my daughter right now. And I was like, okay, cool. So are you able to talk? And she goes, I'm with my daughter right now. I already told you. And I went, have a nice life. Click. She screamed at me. So I went right on the site and I said, psycho, who would never go out with.
Level 10.
Yeah.
No-go
zone. No-go zone. So, and that was it. I only did those three. And then I told them, please take me off. Like I'm done. They might actually work, but for me, it wasn't a great experience. And I didn't use that. That's a lot of money.
Yeah.
Spending on that. But hey, some people are professional. They don't have the time. So they pay someone to go and take care of the dating for them and do all the filtering and all the stuff that we have to do on
And all the vetting and
yeah,
that kind of stuff. So, well, do you have anything else to add today to this segment?
Yeah, so just to do a recap on everything, there's lots of different ways to go out there. Some things aren't for everybody. Some things are going to be perfect for you. You've got to go out, be willing to experiment, not take things personally and try them. I do want to say that consumerrankings.com said that the top sites in order from consumers' experiences was eHarmony, Match, Our Time, Zoosk, and Elite Singles in that order. Those are their top 5 sites for people to go to.
eHarmony, I have a lot of friends that did eHarmony. Their algorithms are amazing. They are more expensive, but it is for serious people looking for their lifelong partner.
Wow, nice.
It's not just a dating site. It is, these are the people we feel that you will best match with for long-term success.
Good.
So I could see that.
Good. So our next podcast that's going to be coming up is going to be a lot of fun. This one I've put a lot of time and effort into, and this is going to be about how to create the best profile that you can to, and again, this is about sales and marketing, to be able to attract the right people and the correct people for you. This isn't about attracting everyone. This is about you. This is about spearfishing, not throwing out a giant net and reeling in whatever you possibly can. That's going to be a fun one. Looking forward to that. We'll get to that here next week.
I'm excited about it too. So, all right. How do they find you, Eddie?
So you can find me on Facebook. My speaker page is Eddie Cunningham. At Edified Living on Instagram. Look me up on social media and feel free to direct message me and we'll get back with you.
We need to get you a website.
I know.
Hey, I'm just glad you got professional headshots. So you can find me at tinavaliant.com for all future events, classes, and workshops coming up. I will be in Orlando June 8th and 9th for a 2-day workshop for real estate. I am the only speaker for that one. So wish me well on that because I'm going to be tired with 200 agents. But no, definitely. You can also follow me on Facebook. Just look up Tina Valiant. You'll find me. And we look forward to seeing you in our next episode. Everybody take care, be safe, and we'll see you next time.
Aloha.